Hey everyone, so today I wanted to cover how to create buttons. So once you get started with VBA, you're writing your code and you want to run your code, you might want to create a dashboard or a maybe a workbook that you send to other people so that they can do things on them, either with user forms or just having them move around, manipulate data with your code, but to have a user interface for the people that are going to be using it. And so you might need to use buttons for that. So right now I'm going to cover how to create buttons. I have some code that works with charts, so that's why I've added a chart here, but this works well with any type of code that you might have. So I'll go over a couple of different ways to create buttons. So the first would be just to assign code to either a shape or an image. So that's why I have that image here. So say I have this button here. This I think is my favorite way of creating buttons because it's very versatile in terms of the formatting. You can format these shapes any way you want, add color, add line, do anything to them. You can even write inside of them. So this would be button, or you could say, fix graph. I have some buttons that say, load report, something like that, right? So you could do you can do all sorts of things with these. So there we go. We have this button now. What's not a button yet, and right now it's just a shape. But for example, if I wanted to make this a button, you would right click, go to assign macro. And right now I only have the one macro, but if you had several, they would appear here and you would choose whichever macro, whichever, basically the code you've written that you want to assign to that button. So now that I've done that, now it's a button. And so if I click it, it'll run the code. The code was to add labels to these charts. And similarly, you can do the same thing with an image. This is an image that I just downloaded from Google and brought into here. We can do the same thing. So now the image becomes a button. Let me delete this so you can see. There it is. So it ran the code. So that's an easy way to do it. There's also other ways, which I'll go into next. If you have your developer tab here, you'll have your form controls and your ActiveX controls. So these are just two ways that you can add buttons as well. That would be a form control. It asks you right away, this window popped up and asks you what code or what macro you want to assign to it. So right off the top, it's already asked me. Again, I'll delete this so you can see. There we go. If you have an ActiveX control button, you can draw that one as well. This one you will have to assign first. So it takes you to the window and basically already has private sub command button one click, and you will assign the code that you want to run when the button is clicked. So let me just test it real quick. So I'll copy this code that I have into this. So now exit design mode. And now after you click it again, the code that you wrote there in that sub will be the one that runs. If you want to, right now it's a bit tricky here. This one you can click it and move it and do anything with it. This one you can't move it unless you enter design mode. And then once you're there, then you can either delete it or do whatever you want with it. These look a little old. They have less versatility in terms of formatting them, which is why I like to draw or insert shapes instead. But they all work just as well. They work just as if you had gone to your VBA or Visual Basic window and run the code from there. So very neat. Um, One thing I will say about the form controls and the ActiveX controls might work better. Or actually is probably the only way that you can do it with the either the form controls or the ActiveX controls if you're using a user form. So if you have inserted a user form, which is a window that can pop up after clicking a button or, as soon as you open your workbook, inside of those user forms, you'll have to use one of these buttons, and then you'll have to use code to manipulate, you know, the buttons as well. But that's the gist of it. That's how you create a button and assign code to it.